We had some of the best stunt performers in the world. Like punches or kicks or things in that bus fight were being done so fast by one of our key stunt performers that we had to tell him to slow down because it wasn't catching on screen.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. Today's episode takes us behind the scenes of director Destin Daniel Cretton's new fantasy adventure, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The film welcomes a new superhero into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, telling the story of a martial arts master who must confront the past he thought he'd left behind when he is drawn into the web of the mysterious Ten Rings organization. In addition to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Mr. Cretton's other directorial credits include the feature films Just Mercy, The Glass Castle, Short Term 12, and I Am Not a Hipster, the documentaries Drakmar, A Vassal's Journey, and Born Without Arms, and episodes of the television series Tokyo Vice and Scenes for Minors. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Cretton spoke with fellow director Jon M about filming Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Oh, but John's movie was my favorite movie of the year, so this is it's a very real honor to have this conversation.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I'm so psyched this weekend. Holy moly, you did it. You did it, dude. I'm like literally jumped up and down all weekend with my kids, with my wife, with my family, calling back home. They all went to go see it. It's like I didn't get to enjoy that. When we were doing Crazy Rich Asians and going into the theater, like it was, your movie, so you just don't. But I got to feel it this time in all its glory. And I'm just even I was in tears out here seeing it. I felt like Shang-Chi when the rings burst out of that. And we get to talk to you first after this weekend. How does it feel to have the number one movie in the world?
It's a strange time to release.
I knew that was going to be my first question. So it's just like, how simple.
It's a really weird time to have a movie in theaters right now. I like you probably know, the ups and downs of this occupation. The emotional ups and downs are so weird that whenever a movie is releasing, I just try not to look at anything. But it's nice to be here tonight with all of you.
And so who calls you during the weekend? Like, who tells you it's working?
A bunch of people. I there's a lot of, typically I don't ever get hit up by agents in my own agency, but
Asians or agents?
Just, but for whatever reason, it's, if you have a movie that's doing well, then all of a sudden every agent, I have 30 emails from people I've never talked to before in the agency saying congratulations. So that's one clue that it's doing all right.
And you get to talk to Simu and Awkwafina?
Yeah, I've gotten to hang out with them the last week. So we've been jumping all over the place and answering the same questions over and over and over until our brains are mush.
Thanks. No pressure. What I'm so struck by when I watch this movie is your presence in it. Because I imagine Marvel's just this giant machine. How did you navigate that? And how did you know you were going to do this movie as your first big VFX movie, first big?
Yeah. All I know is my own experience at Marvel. I had the thought before I took this job that I did not want to jump into a giant machine and just get chewed up. But I had a conversation with a few directors who had worked with Marvel, and particularly directors that I clearly was able to see their voice in the final product and movies that I truly loved, and asked them what that process was like. And they had nothing but positive things to say about the experience. And I also feel the same way. I never once felt like a cog in a machine. I felt really supported. I felt more, honestly, more supported than any studio I've worked with. I never felt like the battle, the creative battle was never within the people that I'm working with. It's always just time. And then in our case, it was time and COVID that we were battling.
You guys were shooting before COVID and during it, or how did that?
Yeah, we shot for about 2 months, and then I had my second child 2 months into production. And then a week after that, COVID hit and shut us down, which, it sucked, but it also let me be at home with my newborn for 3 months. So that was great.
So you had a baby and then you came back to it. Did that change? Do you think the movie changed from that?
Majorly.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had a huge, that giant third act craziness that you guys just experienced. It was right before the shutdown that I finally figured out what I wanted the characters to be doing in that third act battle. But it was like I was up, till 2, 3 in the morning trying to write while in pre-production and production and trying to figure out what that giant third act was going to be. And being able to have that time during COVID to really refine it and figure out a lot of problems before we shot was actually very beneficial.
I loved it. Just growing up in a Chinese restaurant with the lions there and the dragons, and to see it like in motion, it was very emotional. It was very like these characters that I've known my whole life suddenly had real personalities and things. It was very moving in that.
Well, that's wonderful. I am not Chinese descent. My great grandparents came over to Hawaii from Japan, but in Hawaii, it's one of the has one of the highest percentages of Asian populations in the country, but it's a mix. It's like a total mix, and so even though I was raised Japanese, the local culture there there's a huge Chinese population and Korean and Filipino, and Thai, and it's all just mixed together in the food, the language, and so to be able to have a reason to delve into this one part of my upbringing, which is the Chinese. Like I just knew like this much because of my exposure to my friends who are Chinese, but to be able to have a reason to really explore it and understand the similarities to my culture, to my grandparents' culture, and the differences. But it was a very enriching process for me.
And you worked with Dave Callahan. Would you walk us through because this is the comics are very problematic, to say the least, in some of the things. And so you had to tackle, I don't even envy that position of looking at this stuff and how do we redefine it? One, what made you say, yes, I'm going to go jump into that? There's so many landmines. And two, how did you and Dave figure that out?
I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the comics, but the comics did have a lot of pretty, at least to any Asian American or Asian, they're pretty offensive in a lot of ways. Sometimes very offensive and sometimes just very outdated. That was my number one concern when I went and even met on this. One, you're starting a project with a stereotype, a kung fu superhero. And when you read those comics, you could easily just perpetuate all of these Asian stereotypes that we've seen forever. But Marvel was very, right off the bat, told us, we know, we don't want to do any of that. And then I met with Dave Callahan, who's Chinese American, and we both were just very scared, but equally excited to update all of these characters in a way that felt So that just felt like, I mean, honestly, that felt like your movie. Like when the first time I saw Crazy Rich Asians, I was just bawling like within the first act of the movie. There wasn't even anything sad happening, but I was bawling because I didn't even realize what I was missing until I was just seeing these characters kind of just talking like my friends, and so we wanted to for me go even deeper and set it in America and have them sound just like my Asian American friends, and that was like super exciting to do with Dave.
I feel like when I think there's a line that Tony says in it that says, "You spent your whole life, entire life, always running, always hiding." Like that's what I always felt about my own cultural identity. Like I always just wanted to like hide and make it about movie making. Yeah. So it was really to hear some of those words or even heard of Awkwafina, being told that if you can't hit anything if you don't. I don't remember the words, but it was great. If you don't, like to me,
if you what is it? If you aim at nothing, you hit nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to like tattoo that on my.
It's like it's everything that your parents say to you. It's very, and then there was something, and there was an exuberance to that. So however you guys did that, it's amazing. What I also noticed is also very scared of like how is a martial arts going to be, like. That is such a thing that I don't know any martial arts, and it's hard to be defined by that. But at the same time, it is a part of our culture. Yeah. And I felt watching this it was not fighting for fighting; it was an expression. What was your philosophy going into this? And by the way, every single fight was just mesmerizing. I mean, just on fighting level, it's like
yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing because like Bruce Lee is. Excuse my language, fucking cool. And there's no denying it. To me, like the problem of how that became a stereotype was because there just wasn't any other option. There wasn't like also the really cool. I mean, nobody talks about the fact that Bruce Lee was actually first a dancer, and that if his dancing also took off and somehow he became the best dancer in the world, that would have become the cliche, and we would all have people going like, "Oh, you're Asian? Can you dance like Bruce Lee?" But what's exciting is that right now we're in a world where we can do a movie like Crazy Rich Asians or this movie and just show people variety. Like it's not, and to me the variety of personalities of characters, even in this, I mean, primarily everyone's of Chinese descent, but like everyone's so different, so drastically different, and to me that's one of the ways to break the stereotypes.
And there was all the different styles of martial arts. Did you guys break that down? And how did you work with the stunt coordinator or
I mean,
for that?
I took Taekwondo for about 2 days when I was a little kid, and that's the extent of my martial arts knowledge. I was very nervous about that part of this because I wanted to look at the action, the fighting. Not only, I just didn't want it to become a shtick or contribute to like a cliche. And to me, what Brad Allen is, he's been in the game. He trained under Jackie Chan. You'd actually recognize him in some of Jackie Chan's movies. But what he came to us with when I first met him was a deep, deep respect for the culture and for the art form. What he did was surround himself with choreographers from Hong Kong, from mainland China, some of the best stunt performers in the world, who were all, I mean, most of them were wushu champions before they even came into cinema. So they are they're not only trained in the physical art, but also the spiritual art and the mental art that's behind every move. So that respect that they had for the art form was, to me, just as important as creating, wow moments in their choreo. And the second thing that I think is a really important part of being trained in the Jackie Chan camp is that they're not just trained as martial artists, they're trained as storytellers and as filmmakers. They are trained to know when to cut, how long you can physically have hold a shot before a stunt performer or actor will shut down, how many moves it takes. And they'll kind of figure that out. Simu can do this many moves before we have to cut. If we're using a certain stunt double, they can do this many moves before we have to cut. They also, it's camera placement, but primarily the biggest thing that I really wanted was storytelling, to always be present and clear, a clear narrative in every fight. And to me, that's for me, who's not an action director, I actually very often tune out as soon as action starts. I start to drift, unless it's certain specific movies that are so good at it, because the narrative within each fight is so clear and compelling. And to me, that was one of the greatest contributions of the late Brad Allen to our movie.
And are you there to, like, how does the rehearsal period? Do you rehearse with the actors first for the scene, and then they go to fight rehearsal, and then you come in and you've seen sort of cuts and you start to meld the two together? Or do you put that on, like, how do you work? How do you find this where the seams connect?
It's just it's like a beautiful chaos. We start with the script. The choreographers will meet and we'll talk through the points that we want our actors to be hitting, and how we just start brainstorming ideas of how the fight sequence could help us tell the story and have.
So let's talk about
the
bus sequence specifically.
I mean, the bus sequence is so plot heavy that it was. Yeah. I mean, the bus sequence was something that I actually pitched to Marvel in my initial pitch, nice. Which was having a fight sequence that really was an exercise in just stakes raising. And it's just, to me, like the narrative plot of that is just as important as all of the choreo. And what I love about it was we gave Brad and his team the stakes that are, like, we knew that the brakes had to go out, and we knew Razor Fist was going to cut it. We then knew we wanted a beat where Shang-Chi has to figure out how to drive the thing while he's fighting. And then we knew Katie but we don't know what the choreo is going to be in between, but we knew what all the beats were, and we knew we wanted those stakes to keep raising. And once we had figured out what those beats were, what the story was going to be all the way to the end, then we literally got one of those buses and had it shipped down to LA, and just threw the choreographers in there with their stunt team, and they just started figuring out what kind of things they can do within that space, within the context of the story that we've created. And it really is the story obstructions that we create for them that they love, because then they're not just kicking and punching. They can be creative in how to get from point A to point B.
So getting that bus was super critical, because that probably changed everything of what you thought according to space. And they
were like, I mean, Florian, who plays Razor Fist, is a big dude, and they didn't realize, like, when he stood up, he was almost touching the top of that bus. So there's a lot of times where if he just did that, it was boom.
Did you adjust any of the bus for that? No. So that's like a real interior of a bus, or did you guys make it a little wider?
It's a real bus.
Oh, wow.
we bought a number of them from like that were out of service, and we sent one down here to LA to practice in before we went to Sydney, and then we shipped 2 of them out to Sydney on a barge, and one of them was in a stage up. We had one on a stage that was more for the flat stuff that would just kind of move like this. And then we had a second one up 20 feet up in the air that was on a mechanical gimbal that we had 2 guys in like a little booth just with joysticks, and it could go 45 degrees. So it could do all of the hills and do the turns, and it could twist. And I don't know how those actors survived because we were in there for a month. And I went up there for the test, and I was up there for 5 minutes, and I thought I was going to barf. It was I got so, it was so weird being twisted around, but yeah, it turned out.
And that was green screen, not like stagecraft or any of that kind of stuff. The screens.
No, we didn't. We didn't do any of that stuff. Like that, yeah.
And was this one, I think that sequence is one of the best sequences I've ever seen. You can see, you can tell Simu's there, like he's doing it. How important was that for you to have actors that could fight and be seen while they're doing this? I felt like across the board, I could see everybody. Nothing was being hidden.
That's awesome. Because there's a lot being hidden.
You got me. That's good.
It's incredibly important to have actors who are able to. For me, I don't think Simu would have been able to get to the places that he needed to be emotionally, or just holding himself as a fighter if he didn't go through that intense training. And it was pretty intense. It was like 4 months of straight training, and by the time we were there, he was doing things that nobody thought he would be able to do by then. In the same breath, I don't want to take things away from our stunt people. They're in this a lot, and I don't talk about it a lot in the press because it's like cooler to say that the actors are doing everything. But we had some of the best stunt performers in the world in martial arts doing the craziest stuff. Like some of those punches or kicks or things in that bus fight were being done so fast by one of our key stunt performers that we had to tell him to slow down because it wasn't catching on screen. And it still looks like it's sped up to me. But these guys were so good, so dedicated, and so sweet and humble, and it was such a unique joy to work with them. And it was such a cool combo because there's always like a lot of political things happening in the world, and there was a lot happening. There still is overseas in that area, but it was so cool to have a production where we had some of the best stunt performers from Hong Kong, some of the best stunt performers from mainland China coming together, and it was just like brotherhood. It was so fun to have them.
And since we're DGA here, how is working even with a second unit director or any of that? I don't even know how much or little, but like, how do you communicate with that? I think that was like a shock to me. It was like, oh my gosh, someone has got to work with. They've got to be in our style. Yeah. How was that experience for you? This is your first time.
Yeah, it's my first time having a second unit director. I had no idea what it was going to be like. The way that we worked was primarily we would do the first pass of every scene. So we were actually, our unit was in that bus fight for about 4 weeks shooting. Wow. And we were just kind of for that scene, we left a handful of like the things that we just knew were going to take way too long that we could do with a stunt person, and it wasn't the main actors. But typically, the rule was if it's one of the main actors, we do it, and if it's something that a stunt performer could do, we would put it on the second unit potential list, and if we can get to it, we get to it, and if not,
was there growing pains ever with that? Of like, hey, you got to shoot it like this, like we've got to get our rhythm together.
I mean, one good thing we had is Bill Pope, our DP, had worked with Brad Allen on a number of movies before, so there wasn't like a lot of ego battling. Sometimes you could, I suppose, I've heard that you can get that between first and second unit. It was just like me and Bill would just go through, oh, we want this, and that we knew was helping to set the aesthetic of that scene. And we would be able to cut together that section, and then second unit was basically able to see what the aesthetic of the scene was, and then go through and fill in the blanks. And that's generally how it was. I mean, there's always times when it hits the fan and second unit and first unit are just going at the same time because an actor has to be shot out or whatever. But
and one of the best things you do, if you're not following him on Instagram, it's like every day he's showing a crew member and talking about them and what they've done, and I love reading it. It's like I feel like an asshole not doing that. And so, but it's really interesting. So tell me about like working with some of these people, like, well, your AD, who I think you said some really Jeff,
Jeff,
really, really kindly, and also your production designer, because the design is so striking.
Yeah, I mean, I started posting that on, it was a few movies ago, and a part of it is like, it's my own way of reminding myself of why I do this, and it's usually leading up until opening weekend, which at least for me is not my favorite time in the filmmaking process. And it's the time where I feel like I have no control over this thing, and I'm just like, but part of my coping mechanism a few movies back was making these Instagram posts of people that I'd take photos of and try to learn about their job or learn about why they got into the business, and then I just post them. But to me, like, it's weirdly selfish. It's like me just reminding myself of like, oh yeah, I made this movie because of the process of making it was so awesome, and it doesn't matter what happens this weekend. So that's part of the reason why I do that. Jeff, I was actually just texting with him on the way here. Jeff Okabayashi has worked on some crazy movies. He actually started in the DGA, the training program.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was like, I don't know if he was an accountant or something. I don't know what, but he just kind of defied his parents and went into the DGA training program, and has been doing it ever since. And he's done some of the biggest, most complicated movies up to this date. And for me, what was so amazing about him was that when the stress level went up, and sometimes it went like red hot for him, where the schedule was just like, seemed impossible to figure out. When the stress level went up, it's like his joy somehow went up. It was so weird. And he would always just say, it's fine. I've worked with Michael Mann. This is fine. Or like, I mean, he would just like, he'd talk about the crate, like he'd talk about working on Pirates. And it's like, some one time on Pirates, and it's fine. We're making a movie. And that, I don't know, that type, being around that type of joy is really important for me, to remind me of that, that this should be fun. We're just playing make believe. Sue Chan had that same mentality. I believe this is probably her biggest movie. She had never done like a giant movie as a production designer before, and to Marvel's credit, even though typically production design they'll go with a veteran, but she had a really great pitch and a really great vision, and it was like, I guess, a risk. But she killed it from day one. Just killed it, and was just impressing not only the studio, but she led one of the biggest teams on set. And you talk to anybody, you talk to the intern, and everybody loves her and are so motivated by her. And yeah, that just, like, I don't know, that really moves me. And now that this movie's done, I can't stop. Like, everybody calls me not to talk to me. They're calling me to say, how is it working with Sue Chan? Because we want to hire her. And I'm like, yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, she's awesome.
That's amazing. Well, we're out of time, but I wanted to say that I've looked up to you for many, many years. Short Term 12 is a movie that I keep very close to my heart, of how performances can be truthful, how stories can be authentic. And so when I see you here and see what you've achieved and see how it makes me feel, not even knowing you, just sitting in the audience of watching this thing, it is so fulfilling. I needed this joy in my life. So I, one, personally wanted to thank you. And two, as sort of our last thing before we get out of here, is this has been a tough year. When that dragon, when those two are fighting, it feels like the year for Asian Americans. And I think a lot of people are feeling what you put up on there. I don't know when you came up with that, I don't know, but what do you hope people get out of this? And what do you hope for yourself? What has changed you personally, not just in your movie making, but personally from this experience?
In the middle of shooting this movie, it was strange, because it was I was directing these scenes full of Asian talent, and it was the first. It just hit me that I didn't realize up until that point that I'd never done it, which is kind of weird. But I think I just became so used to doing things with non-Asian creative people that I was like, I didn't even feel the loss until I was surrounded by it with people who understood the quirkiness of my mom and grandma and the food and the culture, and it was such a joyful, fulfilling process. At the same time, the pandemic hit, and we collectively, this community of people who are pouring ourselves into this project, started seeing these terrible images of people who just look like my grandma or my grandpa walking down the street getting beat the shit out of. And it is like when I think we look at those things, it's like you can't help but just see your grandma, who you love and respect more than anyone in the world. So there is a part of us that, I don't know, it opened up a lot of conversations when we're on set, and it's when I see an image like that, the first thing I can think of is there is no way that person would do that to that grandma if they knew who she was. If they could see her in the context of her family, they could see her ability to love, they could see her relationships. There's no way they would do that. And that's what we tried to infuse into this movie, were characters that you, regardless of what your culture is, that you can hopefully relate to personally, or look or see attributes in them that you can see members of your own family or people that you love. So even though it is a giant superhero movie, I hope that's one of the byproducts of it. I also hope that that people just see this as a moment to celebrate. Our community has gone through pain. I think every community has gone through so much pain, and your movie really did this to me. Like when we were in the Heights, I was sitting back there just watching a little bit of it for the second time, and I was bawling my eyes out. Not because I'm sad, but because I'm just like, I'm so excited to have a reason to celebrate, to celebrate humanity, to celebrate a community. And even though this is a big action Marvel superhero story, I hope that it gives people a reason to celebrate their communities as well.
Destin Daniel Cretton, everybody. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.